Hey, hey everyone, you joined us in mid conversation. I am with the mighty, the one, the only Randy Weingarten, who is the author of the best selling new book. Show the book, Randy. Why Fascists Fear Teachers. Randy should know because she's not only a teacher, she's El Presidente of AFT, the American Federation of Teachers, the Teachers Labor Union. She is on the front line. She has used her voice and her position to do her best to protect not just teachers, but also public education. And usually, Randy and I had this technical glitch. I usually label this for folks. So I know people are coming in blind, but don't you worry. I'll let you know what we're going to talk about here. We're talking about the GOP's attack on teachers and specifically the nearly 70-year campaign, folks, to dismantle public education. And I want you all to know, I'm the one saying this, not Randy, is if you look at authoritarians and if you look at fascists around the world, both now and in the past, when they get power, what they usually go after is the following. They purge the judiciary and replace them with lackeys. They go after the media and have basically Pravda, state-sponsored media. And then the third institution that they quote unquote try to purge always is schools, education, universities. It happened in Hungary. It happened in Russia. It happened with Germany. And lo and behold, I believe it's happening in America. CRT, DEI, banning books, putting in the headlock of these universities right now. But, Randy is at the forefront of it, protecting teachers. And your book title is Why Fascists Fear Teachers. Randy, let's get into it. Why do fascists fear teachers?
Because so what teachers do is pretty much the opposite of fascism. And I was very so let me just take a step back and say
Please.
I wanted this to be a warning. I watched in the tail end of, and look, I was writing the book already. I was, playing with these concepts of what fascism and authoritarianism were and are right now, and the juxtaposition against what public education and what teachers try to do. And so, but I was really, I think I fixed on the title when I watched that John Kelly and Mark Milley and others trying to um, uh, raise concerns about what the first Donald Trump administration was before January 6th and how it just got poo-pooed. Like it was not only not ignored, not heeded, but there was a sense that it was sour grapes as opposed to, or it was political as opposed to they were trying to warn America about what was going on. So the what teachers do is teachers create an environment in a school that tries to be safe and welcoming, that tries to welcome the stranger, that tries to overcome um, a, a sense of fear of people who are different and bringing people together who are different. And even if you have different views and opinions, how you can be in a society, whether it's a classroom or a campus. And so the first thing teachers do is they create a welcoming and safe environment for kids and then hopefully for parents in the broader community. That is something that fascists abhor because what fascists are trying to do is create fear and loathing and
Mm,
then create a division and that where you not only denigrate, but you dehumanize the other. So it's kind of the opposite of what teachers are trying to do. And the second thing that teachers do, which is what people know all the time, is frankly something that the founders of the country wanted teachers to do, which is to create to critical thinkers, to
mm,
create the skills and knowledge that kids need so that they can make decisions on their own, not be told by the great leader or the authoritarian leader or the one that, all else is relying on. This is how you think, this is what you should do. But that kids themselves can get to their own, opinion of what to do or take their own path and their own journey. And that is the skill of critical thinking. That is the skill of discerning fact from fiction. That is the skill of open inquiry. That's the skill of asking questions. That is what, teachers do as a key skill that kids actually need to grow up and to live life. And so when you see these culture wars, the erasure of history, the book banning, the taking empathy out of schools, not seeing each other for who we are and respecting them. That's why what teachers do is they are really the antidote. They are really the opposite of what fascism is, and that's part of the reason that you saw in terms of Nazi Germany. I mean, look, you saw the history of fascist regimes are from many times go back to World War II, but you saw in terms of Nazi Germany, you saw in terms of Mussolini, you see in terms of Orban and others. The first thing they do is they go after universities, they go after thought, they go after knowledge. So fascists fear knowledge, and fascists fear people having basic humanity with each other. And those are kind of like 101 for what teachers do.
And I've said for a while now, I've tried to sound the alarm, even though I'm not a teacher, because I study fascism, that teachers are frontline warriors, whether they want to be or not, and that
Correct.
schools have always been, folks, the battleground for the culture wars. And we'll talk about it. We're going to take the DeLorean back. Even before abortion, gay marriage, it's always been schools. And a
Right.
few years ago, Randy, I wrote this piece because I'm in here in Virginia, D.C., and I saw what was happening with Glenn Youngkin's race, and I saw Loudoun County, which was the last county here to desegregate, by the way, and is one of the wealthiest counties. In Loudoun County, what Republicans did is they used it as a laboratory. And I saw what they were doing because it reminded me of what they did with the anti Muslim memes, the anti Sharia laws of 2014. And they tried to mainstream the boogeyman of CRT and DEI using Loudoun County. And they threw everything at the wall and saw what would stick, right? So they went after Toni Morrison and then transgender. They're like, all right, people aren't down with banning Toni Morrison, but we can win them over on this transgender stuff. And instead of staying transgender, we can be like the 80s. We can just cloak it. We could say busing, welfare queens, tough on crime. So we'll call it parental choice. And that's what helped Youngkin. And once they saw Loudoun County as the laboratory, I kept warning people, Randy, I said, Democrats, don't take your eye off the ball on this one. Have a counter response. And then you saw Elon Musk give $300 million to Donald Trump. You saw Republicans spend more than $200 million on the transgender boogeyman. You saw CRT, DI, woke, woke, woke. And it was all from this attack on schools. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. If I'm
No.
right, expand on this, please.
No, you're not wrong. And frankly, and Terry McAuliffe and I still disagree about this to this day because parents have to have a role in kids' education. And when Terry at the debate said, no, 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 it's just teachers, it just
Terrible.
walked right into there. And he has forgotten that I called him immediately to say, no, we are in this together. Parents and teachers have to work together on behalf of kids. And look, I love the South Carolina example where that 60 Minutes had on, where after there was a huge amount of book banning, and this is not a liberal area. The powers that be in the town kind of got together. They did study groups themselves, and they went from 60 books banned to 3 books banned
That's
instead,
right.
because they went through a process of actually not based upon fear, but based upon knowledge and based upon what's age appropriate and what should happen. So, but you're right. What they do is they just throw spaghetti at the wall and they see what will stick. What's the wedge that will stick? And they try a lot of different things. But a cultural war is intended to create that division. And no other than, and I quote him in the book, and look, Jonah Edelman and I did an op-ed about this in 2022 as well, where you have a guy by the name of Christopher Rufo,
I was going
who
to
is
go
one
there.
of is one of the architects here. And what he said in a Hillsdale speech, Hillsdale College is, Betsy DeVos's the college that she has funded. And he basically had a speech one night. He has done it again because I suspect that they understood how that this didn't help them to actually reveal the plot. But he basically said that that to get to this universal choice, this quote parental choice, you had to create universal public school distrust. His words, not mine. And he said that sometimes you had to be ruthless and brutal. And he boasted about how he toxified the word CRT
Yep.
and that he made it into something, and teachers, teachers basically K-12, they didn't even know what CRT was. I mean, I remember when I was in law school, it wasn't called it then, but Derek Bell was talking about disparate impact and what it means and how you create a legal analysis. And then Kim Crenshaw, coined it critical race theory. But this whole notion, even take DEI, diversity, inclusion, equity. The 1960s civil rights laws, and that's part of the reason why I wrote about Johnson in his role as a teacher, not in his role as a president. That, you could say a lot of things about Lyndon Johnson, but what he brought to the presidency was an understanding that if you could level the playing field for kids, that's what the civil rights laws were, the education laws, Title I, Individuals with Disabilities Act. If you could actually create federal resources for kids so that a community that didn't have the tax base, you know, uh, could actually have additional funds, you could create that ladder of opportunity for kids that all kids could climb. And that's what the federal civil rights laws were about, the education ones were about in the first place, to create equal opportunity, to let kids compete, to let kids who were poor compete. And he saw that. And so what is wrong with that? Like, why would anybody think that equality or an equal opportunity to compete is wrong? If somebody is a football player who comes from a really poor area in America and then became a great quarterback, everybody would be saying, oh, he's a great quarterback. Look at what happened. Look at his journey. Why are we not doing that for all kids? And then the second piece is you think about diversity and inclusion. We are a nation of a lot of different people. What is wrong with thinking about how we, as a lot of different people, should be able to figure out how to get along regardless of our differences? And in most of our religious, most of our religions, talk about welcoming the stranger. So, like, why do we think that any of this is wrong? But what they do is they toxify and try to create the us versus them and demonize and dehumanize. That's
That's
the
right.
difference in some ways between kind of regular politics and what, when you go down the road to fascistic behavior, it becomes a demonization and a dehumanization so that the people that you are criticizing, the enemy, that the people you don't like, you so dehumanize that you can that you justify violence against them. And
Well,
and that's
that
and that's what and that's the road, that's the warning sign here. And that's what we see them doing even this week. Sorry that I'm on this
no,
jag
no,
here.
go for it. You got
Even
me.
this week, even this morning, what are the Democrats trying to do in terms of right now? What there are in the next few weeks, notices go out to the people who are on ACA that their premiums are going to go up 4 or 5 times. And this is like 20 million people. This is not two people. And so what the Democrats are trying to say is, look, the big ugly bill was a bad bill. It's going to make healthcare less affordable. We're already seeing rural hospitals close. And they're saying, before we do this to 20 million people, make this part of change this right now. Republicans change it right now. That's what the Democrats are saying. And what does Donald Trump say today? After he met with Schumer after we met with Jeffries, after he did that disgusting meme to try to change the topic to the disgusting meme, he met with them. They talked to him about this. And what did he do today? He said, oh, no, this is about they want to open borders. This is about the trans issues. This is about giving health care to people who are undocumented. It is against the law to give Medicaid to people who are undocumented. So he just lies to try to create this sturm and drum and anger when this is what the Democrats are trying to do.
Keep cooking, keep teaching, Randy. For those 1,000 people who joined us, I'm talking to Randi Weingarten. She's the president of the American Federation of Teachers, author of the new book, Show the Book, Why Fascists Fear Teachers. And I've been talking about education for a long time. I care deeply about it. I'm an
I know
English
you do.
major. And I know because I've been following white supremacists and I know this country, they always go after public schools. And Danielle and I have been talking about this for a long time. And speaking about why fascists fear teachers, because number one, they're the front line. Number two, folks, if you notice the way they've gotten in power in the past 4 years, CRT, DEI, boogeyman, right? Or the boogie person. They go against the most marginalized. As we're speaking right now, folks, they're taking away our history, taking away the photos of slavery, erasing literally transgender people from history, going after Navajo code talkers, right? Literally banning books. As Orwell said, he who controls the present controls the past, he who controls the past controls the future, because they want to undo the history of America that includes people like me and Randy. And teachers are on the front line saying, wait, let me put back these missing pages that you took out. And as a result of teachers simply doing their jobs, folks, Randy, I want to talk about this because I don't think this is reported enough. I brought a receipt from last administration, Joe Biden, where Merrick Garland, for the first time, who's Attorney General, got a request from teachers that teachers were under threat from stochastic terrorism. That they're like, oh my God, teachers, supervisors, people in the school board literally fear for our lives. And then this week, I found out that Jeremy Carl, Trump State Department nominee, deleted thousands of social media posts, many with inflammatory comments, including incendiary posts about race, claims that peaceful coexistence with Democrats is impossible, and even calling for you, Randi Weingarten, a nice, sweet lady, to be executed.
Yeah.
Talk to us about, for the first time in my life, I've seen a deliberate terrorist campaign to literally take out educators and teachers.
So, um I saw that too. And the fact that they have not pulled that nomination after, the fact that he was instructed or he decided to delete the emails, but they didn't pull the nomination tells you all you need to know about the hypocrisy of Stephen Miller and the
Mm,
weaponization of what they do in terms of speech and how they go down this road about, making it speech, then slime, then smears. I mean, the number of smears I get on a daily basis, what I get called on a daily basis. Look, that's part of the reason I have security since, Pompeo called me the most dangerous person in the world. And then the next sentence was because my members teach filth. My members teach children.
mm.
Do not call my members teaching filth. I mean, I don't care what you call me, but he knows better. So it's this fear, fear, denigration, dehumanization to the point that that they called for violence. And this guy who called for my extermination, my execution, they have him as a candidate for the State Department
Jeremy
and
Carl.
Jeremy Carl. And so, for me, I'm not afraid. I mean, it's not that it's not that I don't follow it. It's not that I don't have security now, but I'm not afraid. But it is about trying to get people who disagree with Donald Trump to get them to shut up, to get
There you
them
go.
to be quiet, and
There you
and
go.
look at the difference between what happened. And look, I I, like so many of us who watched Charlie Kirk, and who disagreed with him fiercely and vehemently, we had to, and Eric Ward did this better than almost anybody else I know, the civil rights icon. As soon as Kirk was assassinated, we all must condemn political violence and had a responsibility to de-escalate. But these same people who basically said, "How dare you?" and tried to fire a whole bunch of teachers who just raised issues about what he had said, not not celebrated his murder, which was, is not cool, but raised issues about what he said, tried to get them fired. And yet at the same time, they're silent when their side tries to or threatens to execute somebody on our side.
It's a hypocrisy, and it's projection, and it's civility for me, cruelty for
Yeah.
thee, free
And
speech for me,
weaponization. Exactly.
free
Free
speech for
speech
me
for
to say
me.
no, words don't incite violence. Oh, but if you criticize, then your words incite violence. How dare you call me a fascist for behaving like a fascist? How dare you call me a racist for behaving like a racist? You're to blame. Oh, but when we literally engage in stochastic terrorism and teachers are censored, canceled, fired literally in the past 2 weeks, Randy's right, folks. People don't know. Everyone's been focused on Jimmy Kimmel. Teachers, they've literally been purging teachers. And Charlie Kirk, while he was live, had a professor's watch list. Again, teachers are the greatest threat, one of the greatest threats. They're the what I call frontline warriors, and they have more courage than YouTube or Apple or these private law firms who have all bent the knee because they want teachers to stay quiet. And I want to take this DeLorean, Randy, because people don't connect the dots, and I'm trying our best to connect the dots for folks. 'Cause this does not
Oh,
happen randomly.
right. And
This
that is
is
what I tried to do here too. What
this is
I
a
tried to
long
connect the
term
dots. Mhm.
75-year project, folks. And let's take the DeLorean to 1953, because I've been saying for 10 years, and I was a little bit wrong about this, I'll update it. I've been saying that MAGA, want to take us back to 1953. I was wrong by 100 years. It's actually 1853. But talk to us about why it all starts in 1953.
So, and I spend a bunch of time in chapters 2 and 3 talking about this issue and tracking back to what happened in the 50s. And I use the story, and a part of what I do here is I really use the story of teachers. This book is not an autobiography. I talk a little bit about my own teaching and my own teachers, but it is a love letter to teachers, and they need to be supported more than they ever are. And I wanted to do whatever I could. And so part of what I tried to do is lift up current teachers as well as lifting up people who have, in history. So Barbara Johns, she went to school in Prince Edwards County, Virginia. She went to a segregated school who had tar pits, who had tar roofs, and a school that where kids had to use umbrellas inside when it rained because of how bad the conditions were. And she and many of her colleagues went out and protested. And the NAACP saw that, and they said to her, "Would you be one of the plaintiffs in Brown versus Board of Education?" Or she said, "I want to fight this." And what they did was say, "Okay, we want to fight not just the conditions of your school, but we want to fight the whole thing about how every to an equal education, that you should not have separate but equal is not equal, that you should not have terrible conditions if you're black or brown and better conditions if you're white, and we need to change that." And Brown versus Board of Education, unanimously decided decision, said separate is not equal, that we owe it to our kids. And look, you go back to the founders and the framers who understood that education was a bulwark against tyranny, the bulwark against having kings. And so you fast forward from the Constitution in the 1780s to Brown versus Board of Education that said, this is what it means today. And then what happened in Virginia? They closed public schools.
There you go.
We and others, we did freedom schools. We did, and we, let me just brag on my union for a second. We expelled our segregated locals in the 1950s and the 60s. And because we understood you have to change, and you have to change hearts and minds, but you also have to change law.
Yep.
And so what happened was that is where the concept of choice started. Closing schools, having segregated academies, not wanting to follow the law of the land. So you could see from Virginia what happened in terms of Brown. Instead of understanding, let's try and do this in an integrated way where we bring kids together, we or celebrate our diversity, where we open up everything. It took to the 60s civil rights movement and to the 60s civil rights laws to try to create the equality, the integration that was fought for at that point. But that's where the concept of of choice started, and of segregated and of ending or of stopping in Prince Edward's County and others integration. And what did Barbara Johns do at the end as an adult? She became a school librarian in the
Mm.
Philadelphia public schools. That's what she did. But think about what vouchers are. That's where the vouchers concepts came from. And it is a way of dismantling public education, defunding. It is a defunding mechanism to
There you go.
basically take money away from public schools so that the public schools can't be a formidable choice for parents, that they get so defunded that parents start feeling like they only have another choice. They only have a private choice. And that's what vouchers are doing in Arizona. That's what vouchers are doing in Florida. They're just acting as a defunding mechanism. And look at what happened in Arizona. Arizonans voted against vouchers. They voted against it. They voted to fund their public schools in a plebiscite, in a ballot initiative. And what did the legislature do? They said, we don't care what you said. And they created the vouchers. And what did the vouchers go for? Look,
Christian
I
school?
understand. Some of it is Christian, because what is happening now in so many places, private schools, the Tony private schools that people would want to send their kids to, they're raising tuitions. So
Yep.
what essentially is going on is that the vouchers going to people who were already disproportionately in private schools and are already disproportionately wealthy. The vouchers are also going to people who are homeschooling. And look, I understand people who start saying, look, this is $15,000 or a $7,000 check I can get, and there's no accountability about how I spend it. We can spend it in a bunch of different ways. People, I don't, are workers and people in America, we have an affordability crisis. People are squeezed all over. And what we need to do is we need to deal with affordability and we need to have great public schools. We have to do this as a both and, not as an either or.
And folks, for those who don't know, 90% of our kids go to public schools.
Yeah,
Most people don't have the choice to homeschool because both parents have to work. The culture wars did not start with Roe v. Wade or abortion. That came later. It was always public schools. And
always.
specifically, people forget that in this country, the analogy I've always given, Randy, is if given a choice between renting a room in a big house, let me put it this way. If given a choice between sharing a house with you and me or burning down the house, white supremacy chooses to burn down the village. And in this country, they shut down the schools instead of sharing it. They drained swimming pools instead of sharing it. There was a civil war instead of sharing this country. And we literally saw, and folks, look how it's connected. Loudoun County was one of the last school districts in the nation to desegregate its schools. Fast forward to 2020, Loudoun County was the laboratory of the GOP to use the school system to see if they could engineer parents' choice around CRT and DEI. They saw that it worked to win the elections, create the boogeyman, and guess what? They put it on steroids in 2024. And here we are. And now they have the House, they have the Senate, they have the Supreme Court, they have the presidency, and now they don't give an F. And their whole goal is to dismantle public schools because number one, They can't control the kids in public schools. They want control, control, control. Fascists always want control. Teachers union, mostly vote Democrat. They want to dismantle the union. 3, they want to privatize, right, Randy, and make money off of education, just like private prisons, right? So what better way than to defund the public schools, then turn around and tell people these are pieces of shit schools. Well, look at your kids going to shit schools. Don't you want to go to private schools and vouchers?
Right.
And then the universities, the last bastion where there's free thought, this is what they're doing. The White House is developing a plan that could change how universities are awarded research grants, giving a competitive advantage to schools that pledge to adhere to the values and policies of the Trump administration. Randy, your response.
As opposed to giving a premium to schools who say, we're going to teach the poor, or we're going to honor our veterans, or we're going to actually honor ways to create equal opportunity. I mean, we have sued between AUP, who is an affiliate, and us. We have sued many times to stop the administration from trying to rewrite the law. Those kind of things have to be done through the Congress. Those are policy decisions. And they're also completely violative of viewpoint discrimination. You either believe in the First Amendment or you don't believe in the First Amendment. You will either believe in a right of association, a freedom, a free exercise of religion, a right to assemble peacefully, a right to the freedom of the press and the freedom of us to express ourselves nonviolently, or you don't. And what's happening in this country, and this is an example of it, is that there is putting a thumb on the scale of those of us who are real or really trying to stop and censor those of us who are saying, no, we want to focus on the future, not on the past. We want to actually see a country that believes it's possible to see and feel a future for all of us, not just for some of us. And that's and they're just trying to erase the future, and they're trying to erase the steps we have taken, particularly in the last 60 or 70 years, to see each of us as a worthy, wonderful person. They don't see it that way. They see certain people who are worthy and the rest of us who are not. And so that is part of what they're doing. Now, look, everyone, in terms of every government, has their winners and losers. So I just don't want to be, I don't want to be Pollyannish here. But this is simply about them preferring their particular viewpoint and trying to erase what has been basically the constitutional mandate that we treat everyone equally and try to create opportunity for all.
Folks, I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's a representative of the 2 enduring sins of America, white supremacy and greed. They want control. They're playing for all the marbles.
Right.
And the space that they can't control are public schools and universities, because that's where you teach kids about
Exactly.
different religions and cultures and history. And that's very threatening to them. They want a monostory, one story, the story where they and their tribe, white men, white Christian straight men, are in power, and the rest of us are at best lucky to be guests in their house. But this house belongs to all of us, which is
Correct.
why they have been trying to go back to 1953 since Brown versus Board of Education. I will end on 2 pieces of good news. I think this is good news.
Let me just
Sorry, go
say
ahead.
one more thing to you, Waj, because what happened also in the 50s was the right to work. When you saw folks, because there's 3 ways that regular folks have power: through education, through labor, and through politics. And you could see this pushback as there was a push for equality for all, as there was a way of saying, no, we cannot, slavery is a stain. We need to have equal opportunity for all, regardless of race, We need to have equal opportunity for all, regardless of religion. And you could see that in these three areas, the so-called choice in education, the so-called right to work in labor, this way of trying to divide and divide and divide.
And folks, they're playing for all the marbles now. They're playing for all the marbles. This is it. I've said that the death rattle of white supremacy has become a death march, both here and abroad. And they first and foremost always go for teachers. And you saw it. And there's some breaking news right now. One piece of small good news: the Trump administration, a judge ruled, illegally arrested and deported international students for their pro-Palestinian activism. Came out 5 minutes ago. U.S. District Judge William Young said the push to deport non-citizens for their activism against Israel's war in Gaza was, quote, truly scandalous and unconstitutional suppression of free speech. We'll take one win, folks. And remember, Randy, I try to bring the receipts on this show. They first went after transgender students in schools, no one said anything. They went after undocumented, no one said anything. They went after pro-Palestinian activists, including many Jews, at universities, no one said anything. And then the rest of us said fascists come for everyone. And then they came for Jimmy Kimmel, a rich, white, straight comedian last week. If they can cover Jimmy Kimmel, you're a Jewish woman married to a woman, I'm a Muslim man, the son of Pakistani immigrants. What's going to happen to the rest of us, Randy? Your book is Why Fascists Fear Teachers. It's fantastic. It's a bestseller. The last question I have for you. I have always told people, Randy, I get people telling me all the time, literally, they say this: I'm nobody. What can I do? And I always tell them, I'm a nobody also. We're all nobodies. Or you'll hear people say, I'm sure they say this to you, I'm an average person. What can I do? And we're all average people. And I always tell folks, and you alluded to this earlier, is that we actually have the numbers. When we show up in numbers, even in red states, these book bans fail. I tell
Correct.
people to run for school board, but I give it to you. You're the teacher. You're the president of AFT. People who are listening right now, 1,500 people listening to this, makes me very happy. What can people do to support education, to support history, to support our stories that are being erased, and to support the frontline warriors who are our underpaid, amazing teachers?
So, number one, and frankly, my wife, as you know, who is a rabbi, says this all the time. None of us can do everything, but all of us can do something.
Mm.
So take whatever sparks your interest and do that. And if it's schooling, and I hope it's schooling, go volunteer at the local school. Call up the local PTA. Say, I want to do something. Do something that supports teachers. Call up the local union. You could do it with, we have protests, or, we're doing something nationally and locally almost every single day of the week. Do something to join us, fight for the education funding, fight for support a congressperson who is fighting for to make sure that people don't lose their health care. Anything, write a postcard, engage in Indivisible. Anything that sparks your interest, that says, I want to show up with somebody else. My wife has a program that's called the Beacon Project. Every Thursday night across America, people gather on corners and they hold up signs about what they care about. Do something that you care about with others in community. It will make you feel a lot better. And the second thing is, when we have some of these big protests, like on No Kings on October 18th, we need people to show up, to not be fearful. We are doing everything in our power to obviously make it nonviolent. But when people showed up in June, when 5 million people showed up in June, and virtually no one showed up for Trump's military parade, it sent quite a message to him and to others that America doesn't want this. America, I don't care whether you're liberal or conservative or not ideological or independent, we don't want to lose our freedoms. We may not all be in the same place on economics or on schooling. We do not want to lose our freedoms. And when one of us lose our freedoms, just like you said, Waj, that means all of us are starting to lose our freedoms.
You're
So
seeing it in real time.
stand up for our freedoms. And October 18th is a way of doing it. There are events all over the country. Stand up for our freedoms.
Randy, you inspired me for one final question because I think it's important before I let you go. I've noticed a trend, and it's very disturbing to me. And I never listened to Candace Owens, but I've been listening just for as a masochist to see the divides within MAGA, uh, and and I've seen the influence of this. Like this, there's an Arabic word waswasa, the fear. Right. Once you put the fear out there, once you demonize otherwise intelligent people, when it comes to Tylenol, when it comes to vaccines, you're seeing it happen in real time. I've seen so many of my smart friends, wealthy friends, upper middle classes, usually upper class and wealthy. I got to homeschool. I can't let my kids go and be indoctrinated, right? And you're seeing Candace Owens now saying, I'm homeschooling my kids. I want to take authority back. And I say, okay, go ahead and homeschool, do all this stuff. But like I said before, 90% of our kids are taught in public schools. Can you make the case for public schools and the people who want to protect their kids and say, I'm not going to use my kid to be a statistic. I will protect my kid and homeschool and take him to private school instead?
So what public schools do is that they create a environment where kids actually learn the habits of democracy. They learn with each other. They learn how to live with each other. They learn the kind of skills and knowledge they need to be able to fly in the country, to be able to thrive. And is it perfect? No. But what it is it's people getting together, learning with each other, seeing the wow with each other, being in relationship with each other. We saw from COVID that when society stopped, it broke society. We are a people who like each other, who like to tangle with each other, who like to fuss with each other. But we as Americans are a people who like each other, who want to be in community with each other. And I'm not, if somebody wants to homeschool, they want to homeschool. But the answer is not closing down society. The answer is making society better. The answer is not being fearful of schools. The answer is getting guns off the streets.
That's correct.
We need to create a society for our kids so that they feel their confidence, they feel a sense of ownership and engagement, and that they make a better future than we have with today. And that means being together, not being isolated and apart. COVID showed us that isolation doesn't work. It's being together in relationship with each other. That's the promise of America. And if we can create problem solving, if we can create the kind of public square, I've seen programs in public schools where kids fly. I've seen programs where third graders learn how to weld. I've seen programs where kids are learning how to be cooks and chefs and go into healthcare and debate in the Constitution and be and figure out the next invention. That's kids working together. That is the alchemy of public education. And a public education is teacher. When you see that with a kid, when you see groups of kids saying, I got that, I got this, I know what to do. When you see kids playing with each other, when you see kids working with each other, that's the promise of America. That's hope, not fear. That's aspiration, not anger. That's what public schools do.
You can become a best-selling author. You can be the president of AFT, but once a teacher, always a teacher. Randi Weingarten, shamelessly promote your book.
Thank you.
Promote your book. Promote your book. You
Oh,
got it.
sorry. Thank you.
Why fascist fear teachers? Yeah, and then also teachers always humble. No. You be like a conservative. Be like a Pete Hegseth when it comes to shameless promotion. Only when it comes to shameless promotion, not like anything else. Randi Weingarten is the best-selling author of Why Fascists Fear Teachers. It's the best-selling book, just came out. She's the president of AFT. Support your local teachers. The book is not a memoir, even though it has a few Randi Weingarten-esque nuggets, but it really traces what we've been sharing on Left Hook for a long time. This assault, this 70-year attack on our public education system, on our teachers, which has now, folks, resulted in actual violence and stochastic terrorism, and how deliberately fascist and authoritarian regimes, both here and abroad, have first and foremost used and abused education and the boogie person, whether it's DEI, CRT, transgender kids, immigrant kids, to then dismantle our democratic society. It's a fantastic book. Thank you, Randy, for taking the time. There's 1,500 people watching us. For those who tuned in late, this is Randy Weingarten talking about why fascists fear teachers. We're going to have this up later on today. And if AFT likes some of these gem clips, they'll clip it up as well. Be kind to each other. My kids, I went to I'll end on this, Randy. I've seen it all. I went to public school. My parents put me in a private school. I went to an all Joyce Jesuit Catholic high school. I went to UC Berkeley. I went to UC Davis. All three of my kids go to Virginia public schools. My kids' friends are of all different ethnicities. They all play with each other. For those who watch my show, always, there's like an average of 7 kids in my house at all times, Randy. Our house is that house. I have like boxes and boxes of Costco chips that get destroyed by the children. The kids these days, folks, they're kind, they're empathetic, they're smart, they're decent. They have the capacity to learn and be curious. I see it every single day.
Exactly.
Invest in these kids. Have faith in these kids. They will reward you. You'll see it in real time, and they are our future. So be kind to yourself, be kind to your children, become joyful warriors, rest when you have to rest, become informed, and please, oh, please, don't be a fascist. Thank you, Randy. Take care.